everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. My name is Jordan, and I thank you for tuning in on this week after the first road course of the 2023 season. Let's go ahead and get started and dive into everything. First of all, I want to thank you guys for listening on any of the major podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. We're going to change things up this week and talk a little bit more on the podcasts and then do little videos on YouTube. So if you guys are on YouTube, I apologize for that. We're going to be changing that stuff around. See how things go. So let's go ahead and get into it. This is the first race, as I said, road course race. It's actually the first race in a long time that we did not have cautions after a stage break. Very different. I liked it. We'll see what happens going forward. I think it's good. It brings more strategy into the racing because road courses, a lot of people would just pit right after the stage break and boom. It kind of, in my opinion, especially like Sonoma, it would take away the strategy. So we did go out and we had Craftsman running, Xfinity running, and Cup. And we had two repeat winners from last year. So Zane Smith won Craftsman and AJ Allmendinger won Xfinity. They both won last year. Kyle Busch finished second in the Truck Series. He got out to a large lead. A lot of these guys did during the race, but everything got closer together with the cautions that came out. So it made it a little bit more interesting. We're still talking 1 to 2 seconds at least on these wins difference. Kyle Busch, he was frustrated visibly afterwards because he ended up changing out his pit strategy and that messed him up. And it sounded like it was his own fault, not his crew chief's. Crew chief was kind of telling him, hey, let's come in and green. He's like, no, I want to see what the fall off on these tires are. So I think that would be more on him, even though he was frustrated and upset just in general, lashing out at everybody, sort of. I mean, it's a Kyle Busch thing. In the Xfinity race, William Byron kept going back and forth with AJ Allmendinger, and Byron came out, and he was leading for a while until he would come in and pit, and just that pit cycle change, as I was talking about earlier, which kind of gives them more of a strategy. He tried to pit it, and it didn't work out for him. Whatever AJ was doing, he had it on right, and it went well. But again, we had these long leads, which I'm not a big fan of. But it ended up, the race got a lot closer towards the end than it would have at a normal race, an oval race or oval type race, we'll call it. Going on to the Cup race, we had Tyler Reddick winning first time at 23:11. It was the win that made Kurt Busch get choked up. I don't know if anybody was out there watching Fox. Towards the end, Kurt got really choked up. A lot of people I saw say that, hey, he really wants to be out there. I don't blame him because he didn't finish on his terms. He finished on a medical issue that couldn't get right. So I could see where he could have that emotion. There was some good racing going back and forth, some hard-headedness, some bad racing. One thing that makes Circuit of the Americas different is that turn one, as everybody has heard, when you hear this track, you're climbing up a huge hill and then right into like a really sharp left turn. So people will spread out 6 wide sometimes going in there, and you'll get a lot of people spinning out. I mean, that happened in the Xfinity race, happened in the truck race. It was nuts. So towards the end of the race, you had this happen where Suarez was going up there. Truex was going up there. Chastain got hit by, I believe it was Briscoe, hit Chastain, which put Chastain into Bowman. Bowman went into Suarez and spun him and Truex around. I mean, this happened all race, though, on restarts whenever they would have cautions. And there was a heck of a lot of cautions. Some cautions were silly. I think, like the one caution where they've been racing the whole race with dirt on the track, and then they call the caution to come get it. I don't think that was necessary. We'll touch on that a little bit longer on what my opinion is on this kind of stuff. But that kind of visibly upset Suarez. Listening to the Truex radio, he was upset too. I mean, there's choice words I will not say on this podcast, but he was he was upset. Bubba Wallace got into a early incident where he said his brakes didn't work. I don't know. He was going in pretty hot and heavy into that turn anyway, and he might have just forgot about it and just gone in there. He actually called himself out, and I heard somebody else talking about that, saying they were hoping that the antics of Bubba Wallace would kind of calm down and everything would be fine and he would maybe mature. They pointed out, yeah, no, it doesn't look like that's happening. So will that happen in the future? Who knows? But Tyler Reddick has come out on 2311, guns a-blazing and doing really well. Another person that's done really well, I think he got a P11 finish, was Corey LaJoie. I have been on this show just harping on how well Corey LaJoie is, how good he is. I think he's a really good driver. The equipment is the suspect thing. And I equate that back to whenever they were young. Corey LaJoie was younger with Chase Elliott and so on. He was out there running and keeping up with those guys, even beating them. So, yeah, there was a lot of back and forth that kind of got him up there, like the spinning and things like that. A lot of beating and banging. The road course ringers, as they call them, were out there running. You had who was it? Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button. Who else was out there? Kimi Räikkönen, Jenson Button, Jordan Anderson, I think his name is. Kind of drawing a blank on his last name. I know it was Jordan. But they were out there. They did okay. They did pretty good. I think it was a big whoa. Look what Cup cars do. Like Jordan has run race. Jensen, they've run closed wheel racing, we'll call it for lack of a better term. They ran those, but it's not like NASCAR where you just bounce off people. That was, I think, a big awakening for a lot of these guys. I can't remember who. I think it was Jordan that said it. He was surprised at how Jordan Taylor, sorry, not Anderson. Anderson's the Xfinity owner. Jordan Taylor. They were surprised about how much they beat and bounce off everybody. I think Jordan was saying, man, I've had more contact in this race than I ever had in my whole career. So for everybody out there that wants to poo-poo Cup Series in NASCAR, you have these guys, they're not used to hitting and banging. And, you're going to say, well, you're not supposed to do that. That's how you race in these cars. These cars are built to take a beating to an extent and go from there. So, hey, it's good to see these guys out there that shows some stuff. It shows. I was talking to somebody else and they were saying, I made a comment. You got these road course ringers out there and they don't finish too well. Jenson Button finished 18th. Taylor finished 24th. Räikkönen finished 29th. You got these guys out there, and it could show to these people that, like Formula One and some of these other racing, how tough it is to run NASCAR. Well, somebody I was talking to, who probably listens to this podcast, they were pointing out, well, a lot of these guys are washed up, old. It'll look bad if they don't finish lower. But, you got Jordan Taylor, who's a current IMSA driver, and he's out there running. So I'll refute that a little bit. Other than that, this race was a Circuit of the Americas race. It is a crazy race. Joey Logano got upset during the race because he got called for, we'll call it track limits. It's not really track limits. NASCAR has a thing on the S's where you got to keep at least one tire on the where the turtles would be. Kind of keep it on the track. You can't straighten it out as much as everybody wants to try to do. And he got called for that, and that's a pass-through penalty. So, that helped him finish 28th. Austin Dillon, AJ Allmendinger, Keselowski, they weren't running so well. Connor Daly, he's another guy that actually ran, and he ran pretty late. Keselowski was pretty crazy. He had a drive shaft issue. I don't think it was because it was Ben Rhodes. I was thinking of the Truck Series. His drive shaft just flew out of the truck. It was nuts. I'm surprised they didn't call the wave the flag earlier than they did, but they did call out the caution. There was a lot of cautions on this race in the Cup Series that people were kind of frustrated about, calling them silly cautions, stuff like that, debris. This is where I get into my idea where if we're going to do road courses, let's look into some of these other guys that run. Look at, Le Mans, look at, I believe, Formula One does it. Some of the IMSAs do it. Let's go to a local caution. Local caution would be great because you're not slowing down everything. The pace of the race is still going to be going, but you got to slow down. I mean, this track is huge, and they had a tire carcass rolling around, and they flew a caution for it. And it's like, really, guys? I think that was where a local caution would be better. Local caution would be a lot better on that. Now let's go back to the Bowman, Chastain, Suarez issue on Sunday. As I was telling you, Chastain got into Bowman. We're not even going to talk about the 14 getting into Chastain, but Chastain got into Bowman, got into 99. At the end of the race on the cool-down lap, Suarez, he was running like there was no cool-down lap. He was flying. He caught up to Chastain and Bowman, who both finished fourth and third, respectively, where Suarez finished a lot lower. He finished 27th, and he ended up hitting him, rear-ended him, hit Chastain, hit Bowman. The big thing with the Bowman hit was it was on pit road right next to a NASCAR official. Expect a penalty, fine coming from that. I don't know about suspension, but we're going to see something like that coming out. You can't do that. That goes on to like the whole Bubba Wallace immaturity level. Whenever he wrecked Larson, he did it to Bell too, where it's just like, come on, guys, this is stupid. I know you're upset. You got to calm down, talk it out after the race, fight after the race. Like they used to do back in the old days, sit there and throw punches on pit road. Don't hit the car. The car, you don't know what that guy in front of you who you're hitting is going to do. It could all mess up and go wonky and hit somebody, and then you're going to be in deep doo-doo. So I didn't like that. They also had conversations afterwards. They had bits and pieces of the Chastain-Suarez interview, and I think Chastain came out and just called out Suarez like, don't get all high and mighty. Hey, I don't know. That's different. I overheard on the Race Hub, Trackhouse is supposed to be one team, one together, and they're having this. So I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Marks comes out here and puts the hammer down internally. We won't notice it, but to get these guys back on the right page. So that's one of the big things that happened. I say that stuck out the most. What made it interesting from a standpoint on TV was AJ Allmendinger's radio only worked for like a few seconds. So they ended up having to use the pit sign and communicate with him when to come into pit, stay out. That was interesting. Again, more frustrating on TV broadcast. This wasn't so much following the leaders. This was just interesting directing, in my opinion. They were stuck on some other people, and next thing you know, they're talking about a caution or they're talking about something that's not even on the screen. To me, the director needs to hear, and I know it's tough because everything's live and you're going, but if your guy who's been the broadcast, Boyer, is out there and he's talking about something, you got to find that on a camera and bring it up. I think if it's noticeable, like a wreck, something like that. They didn't do that, and they were very slow on replays. I don't know if they're getting some dictation from NASCAR on what to do. I don't know. That's one reason, again, I say it again, go out to a physical race and watch. Get a scanner, get a radio, listen to the radio broadcast if you don't listen to a driver. It's a lot of fun. So that came out. Kyle Busch came out in an interview, and he pretty much said, I raced Reddick and Bowman clean. Reddick I had no problem with. We've raced each other in the past. He actually threw stones at Chastain, saying that Chastain doesn't drive clean. Whether, I think Chastain runs rough, but I don't think it's anything to kind of cut out about, One thing that kind of stuck with me is Kyle Busch in his interviews. He was visibly upset Saturday after the truck race. I mean, he had blisters. He was calling his hands soft hand. And this is just, again, in my opinion, frustration where some immaturity that has been covered up comes back out. He's like, oh, my soft, girly hands from running the sequential shifters has made them where I can get blisters running an H pattern. My hands are not used to it. But the way he kind of treated Josh, I think the guy's name is, that does the pit reporting. And then the one, I think her name is Jamie too, not Jamie Little, the other Jamie, out on the post-race interviews. He was short, rude, but then you get Jamie Little on a Saturday and he's fine and happy. It's like, come on, dude, you got to give some grace to these guys and kind of help them out. If you don't know them, you can't treat them like crap. You can't be rude to them. I mean, I know a lot of people be like, well, that's Kyle Busch's MO the whole time. Okay. Well, he's supposed to be getting better, getting more mature. Let's see that. Anyway, so that's how COTA ended. I thought it was a pretty good race. It did run really long. I think local cautions would have helped some of that. But Reddick had clearly the better car out of anybody else. So Ty Gibbs had a decent car in Xfinity, but nothing translated over to Cup for him. I don't know. I think Tyler Reddick's showing that he's got a good road course prowess. He stopped Chevrolet's, I can't remember how many string of laps on road courses, but Chevrolet's been dominating road courses recently. And he did a good job out there. Congratulations to him. Kyle Busch got second. Bowman, Chastain. So you go Chevys 2, 3, 4, 5. Byron got fifth. Byron did get on the pole for this race. So he just couldn't keep up with it. I don't know what was going on, but a lot of this stuff, like with Reddick, I think Byron was out there running some of the stage, I should say, out there running a lot of these races. And the way Reddick's pit strategy was, I think he was on a 3 pit strategy, and Byron was on a 1 pit strategy before all the cautions at the end. But whatever Tyler Reddick did, he was able to get back out there and move his way around and get up there. Tire fall off was almost non-existent on this race. So these guys like a Reddick who's doing a 2-stop, maybe I had it wrong, excuse me. He was able to stay out there. No, Reddick was on a 3. I'm sorry. A lot of these guys that didn't pit before and got the stage points, they were still keeping their lap times pretty consistent versus people that had new tires. Like you go to a different race, like we were at Atlanta and so on, those tires fell off like a rock. So that was good to see, some different racing that wasn't dictated by cautions, stage breaks. The choose rule was interesting at this track. I think it'll be more interesting whenever we go to like a Watkins Glen or a Sonoma, because of the fact that this track, you can get so wide going up the hill and then turning into that turn one that it's just nuts. It adds for very interesting racing. I think Mike Joy calls that corner Calamity Corner. But anyway, so that's how that race ended Saturday and Sunday. We had doubleheader with the trucks. So let's go ahead and look at the standings real quick before we move on to some of the news that has happened. Playoff standings. Our top 10 for trucks. Zane Smith, Christian Eckes. They both have wins. Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes, Grant Enfinger, Matt Crafton, Ankrum, Matty D, Corey Heim, Tanner Gray. Just outside the bubble, we have Chase Purdy as well as Nick Sanchez. Again, Nick Sanchez has been doing really well. No discredit also to Raja Karuth, but I mean, Nick Sanchez came in here on a mission. He's been hanging in there really well. So I'd like to see him get up there. Maybe he can get a win because he's been contending for a lot of them. We'll see what happens. Hailie Deegan, she's still struggling. Somebody I talked to said, let's see what she can do in a Xfinity car again. Maybe the trucks are not for her. I mean, she's running Ben Rhodes equipment from last year, so she's got good equipment. She's got Ben Rhodes' crew chief from last year and so on. So she's got championship winning equipment and people around her. Can she not just handle the truck? I know some people can't because of the way this truck is. It's a little bit more challenging to run unless you're like a, Kyle Busch or somebody like that can come out here and lead by 30 seconds almost, it feels like. But I'd like to see her run more Xfinity races and see what she can do. I kind of hate that her Ford contract, I don't know what you want, Allegiance Alliance, might hamstring her some. She might be better with a Chevrolet or a Toyota. I don't know. Probably not Toyota, Chevrolet. So moving on to Xfinity. Xfinity, we have Austin Hill, Sammy Smith, and John Hunter are our winners so far. So our standings are Hill, Nemechek, Allgaier, Hurst, Smith, Sammy Smith, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Josh Berry, Cole Custer, Hemrick, and Kligerman. Kligerman's been doing really well. Ryan Sieg and Anthony Alfredo are on the outside looking in. Somebody else that did run at this race, which was on Xfinity, was Carson Hocevar. I feel bad for him because he kind of just, got the bad luck. The car had issues. He was put in there. I'd like to see what he could do in a car because he's been doing decent in a truck. Haven't been able to get that win yet and get out there and do some better stuff with that. But maybe he's like Hailie Deegan that needs to just go out and go into an Xfinity car more often. And then we go into the Cup Series standings. We will cover those. We have, William Byron's got some wins. We have Logano, Reddick, Ricky. They've all gotten wins. So, let's see what we got here. We got Chastain as first in the playoff. These are all playoff rankings, by the way. Chastain, Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was another one of your winners. Logano, Reddick, Harvick, Bell, Stenhouse, Blaney, Cindric, Byron, Keselowski, Truex, Suarez, Buescher, LaJoie, Hamlin, and then Bowman and McDowell are the two out looking in. So, there you go. Corey LaJoie is up there running, in the playoff points. He's running 15 total, which is, heck, that's really good. I am very happy for Corey. I think it's great. It's a good thing to watch him race. I think he adds a different perspective to things. So we'll see where he lands out coming up. We got a couple more races. We got the interesting one coming up in 2 weeks, the Bristol Dirt. But our next race is actually going to be the Richmond race for Xfinity and for Cup Series. And then trucks are going to be out at Texas. So Saturday we have practice and qualifying for Xfinity at 8 in the morning. We have Cup practice and qualifying at 10. Truck practice and qualifying at 10:30. Again, they're on two different tracks, so they can run close to each other. You have the Xfinity race at Richmond at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Trucks, you got Texas 4:30, and then the Cup race on Sunday is going to be at 3:30. Also running at Richmond is going to be the Wheeling race. They're going to be running on Friday, Flow Racing, if anybody has that. So that's pretty much one of the big runs on that. Some of the other news that we had, some things that we talked about last week, Josh Williams, he ended up getting suspended one race. But like I've told other people, that rule that NASCAR caught him on, they could have gone the less stringent way. They just went, full bore at him. I think that was kind of wrong. And then you have HMS and I think Denny are going to be appealing their suspensions. Those should be coming up here by the end of the month. So we'll see what happens with those. And then the last bit of news that we have is Harvick's going to be running the 29 at North Wilkesboro during the All-Star race, kind of a nostalgia throwback for him because that's the car he first came out in after Dale Sr. passed away. They did not run that 3, so they gave Harvick the 29 at RCR. So we have a lot of racing coming up, different tracks this weekend. Any news that we have that pops up either today or throughout the rest of the week, I will be posting that on YouTube the best I can, make some short videos and do updates like that for that. So that's my idea for the YouTube. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like this podcast. I know Anchor has donations that you guys can put out. Anything would be appreciative. If not, thanks for listening. Don't let me scare you away by asking for donations. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, anyway, guys, I appreciate it. And I will see you guys after Richmond in Texas. Have a good week.